ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Lagos. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink in West Africa, the Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world at WADR.org. First, our top stories. Heavy gunfire are being reported at major central prison in Conakry. Student protests at Sek and Job University turned deadly, leaving one dead. ECOWAS financial experts converge in Monrovia to strengthen regional monetary cooperation.
We must take practical and smart decisions that are consistent with the realities of our community. Our community is getting stronger and we have something to write home about.
A Nigerian President Tinubu describes insecurity as major national challenge, reassures commitment to tackle terrorism and banditry nationwide.
To further find means to strengthen our security forces, to defeat terrorism, that I promise you.
Please stay with us for details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Sankulu Jibril Janko.
We begin in Guinea, where heavy gunfire are being reported at the major central prison in Conakry. According to sources, the prisoners are angry about the transfer of Tumba Jakite, who was found guilty in connection to the September 28, 2009 stadium massacre. The prisoners broke down the doors of some cells and attempted to escape. Tensions are high at Conakry Central Prison this Tuesday. The situation triggered panic in downtown Conakry, where many workers are trying to leave the area for the suburbs. Army armed vehicles and units of the National Gendarmerie Special Forces (GIGN) were deployed around the prison to secure the area. Here in Senegal, where students died on Monday during classes with police at St. Job University in Dakar. The deceased, identified as Abdoulaye Ba, was a second-year medical student. Students were protesting the closure of university restaurants and proposed reform of the scholarship system. Christopher Atichi completes the story.
According to multiple sources, the student's death occurred around 6 p.m. Monday's clashes took place inside the university campus, but also on Sheikh Anta Diop Avenue and the western corniche of Dakar, causing significant traffic disruptions. Students are protesting the closure of university restaurants and an announced reform of the scholarship system. Protests have also been reported at other public universities across the country, including St. Louis, Thiès, and Ziguinchor. Meanwhile, the Senegalese government expressed its deep sadness following the death of a student at Sheikh Anta Diop University in Dakar and pledged to establish responsibility amid renewed tensions on campus. The government called on all parties to exercise restraint, a sense of responsibility, and calm tensions while reaffirming its commitment to the rule of law. This latest tragedy revives memories of previous deaths linked to student protests in Senegal. In August 2014, student Basiru Faye was fatally shot during clashes with security forces at Sheikh Anta Diop University, UCAD, during demonstrations over scholarship payments. In May 2018, the death of student Fallou Sène at Gaston Berger University, UGB, in St. Louis, who was shot during a security operation, deeply shocked the public and reignited the national debate on security measures during the university crisis.
Stephen Atichu with that report. Well, still in Senegal, investigations are ongoing into a transnational criminal network accused of exploiting minors. Over the weekend, the 12 suspects, some of them well known, were arrested by gendarmes in Kermassar district on the outskirts of Dakar. The suspects were brought before a court on Monday to face charges including acts against nature, voluntary transmission of HIV, and endangering the lives of others. The case has sparked widespread public reaction and debate in Senegal, where homosexuality is criminalized by law. Imo Edet explains the details of the development.
Popular Senegalese TV presenter Pape Cheikh Diallo, including musical artist GB Dramé and 10 other people, were heard on Monday by the public prosecutor at the Guédiawaye High Court. They are being prosecuted for criminal association, unnatural acts, intentional transmission of HIV, endangering the lives of others, and money laundering. The accused have all been remanded in custody, while a further substantive hearing will be held in the coming days. The Kermassa Gendarmerie Research Brigade says it is continuing its investigation to dismantle the entire network and establish all responsibilities. Before arriving in court on Monday, several of the 12 defendants admitted to investigators that they had unprotected sex, knowing they were HIV positive. They confirmed to investigators that they deliberately infected about 10 partners recruited via online groups. According to the results of medical examinations, 8 of the 12 individuals involved are HIV positive. The others are still awaiting confirmation of their test results. However, the famous TV presenter Pape Cheikh Diallo denies the charges against him. It should be noted that Senegalese legislation provides for 5 to 10 years in prison, accompanied by fines of 2 to 5 million CFA francs for those who intentionally transmit HIV. According to the National AIDS Council of Senegal, nearly 42,000 people are living with HIV and nearly 90% know their status.
Imo Edet reporting there. Away from Senegal, the president of the Togolese Council, Foreign Yasimbe, and Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi are meeting in Luanda, Angola to address the crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The two leaders also holding talks with Angola's President João Lourenço, who currently chairs as the African Union. The discussion aimed to explore African-led solutions to the decades-long conflict in Eastern DRC. This high-level meeting comes just days ahead of the African Union Summit of Heads of State and Government in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Augustine Colley tells us more.
The objective is to encourage collaboration among all parties within the mediation framework to enhance the coordination of regional and continental mediation efforts. It will also be important to harmonize parallel initiatives such as those spearheaded by the United States through the Washington agreements and others led by Qatar with the Doha talks. The mediation mechanism is organized around several thematic hubs, each being overseen by former African heads of state. The military component will be managed by former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, while the humanitarian aspect will be led by former Ethiopian President Sahle-Work Zewde. Dialogue with local armed groups will be facilitated by former Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta, and regional economic cooperation will be the responsibility of former Botswanan President Mokwetsi Masisi. Issues concerning civil society and national reconciliation will be monitored by former Central African President Catherine Samba Panza. The Joint Secretariat tasked with ensuring the technical coordination of the process will be led by the Togolese mediator, along with support from the African Union, the East African Community, the Southern African Development Community, and the International Conference on the Great Lakes region. The African Union Commission will also coordinate with international partners, including the United Nations, Qatar, the European Union, and the United States. For the African Union, the challenge is significant: to demonstrate that it can provide a coherent and credible homegrown solution to a crisis that threatens the stability of the entire Great Lakes region.
Augustine Colley filed that report. West African Democrats Radio is in Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, for the 39th AU Summit. This occasion will bring together regional leaders and governments around the theme assuring sustainable water availability and safe sanitation systems to achieve the goals of Agenda 2063. The summit is scheduled for February 11 to 15, 2026 is the first time the continental body will meet to discuss the water crisis the continent faces at a time when climate change, insecurity, and other human-induced factors put the lives and livelihoods of millions of people at risk. Beyond water, WADS Abdullah Hassan is at the AU headquarters, says hopes are high for the discussions to be held on other issues such as regional integration, rising youth unemployment, the migration crisis, political instability, and more.
The summit in Addis Ababa today comes at a critical time that water crisis almost intersect with all other areas or core pillars of the African Union Agenda 2063, from peace and security to good governance, economic integration, and of course the major theme here, the Africa we want. Last year, there was an AU investment summit on water in South Africa. A declaration was reached known as the Cape Town Declaration that says for every single year, African countries should at least mobilize $30 billion to bridge the funding gap in providing affordable and portable drinking water to populations. Where are we at today? What are some of the policies and reforms that countries have looked at in the last decade that are not working, and where we need to move away from commitments and pledges to action? Beyond water, this also is a crucial moment for regional leaders to look at the rising insecurity. You can talk about West Africa in parts of northeast, northwest of Nigeria, where you have terrorism and banditry, to the AES region, where you have the spread of violent extremists affiliated with Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State IS. You can talk about the war in Tigray today as we speak in Ethiopia. You can talk about Sudan, Somalia, Mozambique, DRC. This is a crucial moment for leaders to decide the future of Africa, where peace and security will prevail, devoid of unconstitutional changes of government, and where there is respect for the rule of law, protection for human rights, and that democracy is the order of the day.
WDR's Abdullah Hassan filed that report from Addis Ababa, the Ethiopian capital, where he's attending the AU summit.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Meanwhile, financial experts and policymakers are meeting in Monrovia, Liberia, to strengthen economic stability and cooperation across West Africa. The gathering, taking place at the Central Bank of Liberia, highlights the commitment of ECOWAS member states to deepen monetary policy coordination and confront key economic challenges facing the region. Discussions are centered on harmonizing financial strategies and promoting sustainable growth amid ongoing global economic uncertainties. WDR's correspondent Ibrahim Parker reports.
This is the second ordinary joint meeting of the Economic and Monetary Affairs Committee and the Macroeconomic Policy Technical Committee of the ECOWAS Commission, along with the Operations and Administration Committee of the West African Monetary Agency. At the start of the event, Liberia's central bank governor, Henry Samoa, highlighted the importance of regional collaboration in achieving economic resilience. He emphasized the necessity for coordinated efforts to address inflation, promote financial inclusion, and ensure macroeconomic stability across ECOWAS member states.
Regional integration is not merely a policy agenda. It is a moral obligation to future generations. Together, we can and must transform convergence into credibility.
For his part, the Director General of the West African Monetary Agency, Boema Kamara, discussed the progress made in the ECOWAS Monetary Cooperation Program and the challenges that remain in achieving a single currency for the region.
We must take practical and smart decisions that are consistent with the realities of our community. Our community is getting stronger, and we have something to write home about.
These engagements, expected to run until February 13, include the opening of 3 key sessions: the College of Supervisors of the West African Monetary Zone, the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management, and the College of Insurance Supervisors of the West African Monetary Zone. The outcomes of this meeting are anticipated to inform policy decisions and initiatives aimed at fostering greater economic cooperation and prosperity in the region. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
In Nigeria, President Bola Tinubu says his administration remains firmly committed to tackling terrorism and banditry across the country. It describes the insecurity as a major national challenge, one that demands renewed determination and coordinated action at all levels of government. The reassurance comes amid persistent security concerns in several parts of the country, as authorities continue efforts to contain insurgency, banditry, and other forms of violence. WDR's correspondent Yechenu Sasetu gives the details in this report.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu says Nigeria will overcome terrorism and banditry, reaffirming his administration's commitment to strengthening security forces and restoring stability in affected regions. He gave the assurance during his opening remarks at the National Executive Council Conference on Inclusive Growth and Sustainable National Development, where he acknowledged that insecurity continues to present economic and social challenges for the country.
I'm living here again to further find means
to strengthen our security forces, to defeat terrorism. That I promise you.
In addition to security, President Tinubu emphasized the government's broader priorities to enhance macroeconomic stability.
Since the inception of this administration, we have undertaken bold and necessary reforms to stabilize the economy, restore confidence, and lay the foundation for long-term growth. These reforms are instruments for delivering prosperity, dignity, and opportunity to all Nigerians.
The Nigerian leader also pointed to enhanced social investment programs targeting vulnerable households, youth, women, and small businesses. He described these initiatives as part of a larger strategy to promote grassroots development. Observers note that these renewed assurances come amid ongoing security concerns in various parts of the country as authorities strive to contain insurgency, banditry, and other forms of violence. For WADR, Yechin Sasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal, and online at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Heavy gunfire at Conakry Central Prison as prisoners attempt a jailbreak. Student protests at St. Job University turned deadly, leaving one dead. ECOWAS financial experts converge in Monrovia to strengthen regional monetary cooperation. A Nigerian President Tinubu describes insecurity as a major national challenge, reassures commitment to tackle terrorism and banditry nationwide. Still ahead in the news, we also have a press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Crossing over to the Gambia, 30 personnel of the Gambia Armed Forces have completed a 3-week intensive training on explosive ordnance disposal. The program, in partnership with the Islamic Military Counter-Terrorism Coalition, is designed to equip troops with the skills to detect, handle and neutralize explosive threats, safeguard civilians and protect critical infrastructure. According to military officials, the exercise forms a part of broader efforts to strengthen national security and build safer operational environments. WDR's Banjul correspondent Sangdanal Mendy reports.
The training program took place from January 20 to February 9 and brought together members of the Gambia Armed Forces for both classroom and practical session on handling explosive devices. During the graduation ceremony, Brigadier General Said Njai, commander of the Gambia National Army, emphasized his commitment to strengthening the capability of the Gambian forces and enhancing overall national security.
I am firmly convinced that the skills imparted by the distinguished instructors of the IMCTC will significantly enhance the readiness of the Gambia Armed Forces to contribute meaningfully to both regional and global security efforts. The expertise required by the graduating participants in explosive ordnance disposal is indispensable in safeguarding lives, protecting communities, and ensuring operational effectiveness.
Kane Wellings, an instructor with the Islamic Military Counter-Terrorism Coalition, encouraged the trainees to effectively apply their new skills in the service of the nation's safety.
As the students return to their respective units, they do so with increased capability and enhanced responsibility to apply what they have learned safely, to uphold the highest professional standards, and to continue developing their expertise in service of national security. The strength of any counter-terrorism force lies not only in its equipment, but in the competence, integrity, and professionalism of its personnel.
According to the organizers, this program is part of the IMCTC's competence pillar aimed at enhancing the operational capacity of member states. The military exercise covered the detection, handling, and neutralization of a wider range of explosive munitions, including conventional bombs, landmines, and improvised explosive devices commonly used by terrorist groups. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
We now rejoin Abraham Parker in Monrovia for the press review.
This edition features 3 local dailies, and we begin with the independent news paper that goes with these stories. George Weah, a 10-star gentleman, ECOWAS parliamentarian, asserts. Asset Recovery and Property Retrieval Task Force clarifies, provides updates on Clive Foundation case. Up next is the analyst news paper with these stories. Former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Wade's Boaka's third son, says lying to refund needs bold choices. Youth and Sports Minister Designate pledges a structural overhaul of youth, 5 billion refund agenda unveiled, and former Press Union of Liberia President Charles Coffey backs infrastructure draft, urges unity, calls for cooperation. And our next and last stop is a New Dawn newspaper with these stories. Weah's resident return. Even with a broken leg, I can still be the best player, says former President George Weah. And Liberia Telecommunication Authority suspends star cell lessons over regulatory breaches. Well, that does it for this edition of Press Review. For Liberia's capital, Monrovia, is back to you in studio, and thanks so kindly for listening.
Many thanks to Abraham Parker for the press review from Liberia.
Politics,
Analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
The guest interview segment this afternoon focuses on mediation efforts by African leaders to address the crisis in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. Currently, the president of the Togolese Council for Nyasimbe and Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi are meeting in Luanda, Angola regarding this move. The two leaders are also holding talks with the Angolan President João Lourenço, who currently chairs the African Union. This high-level meeting comes just days ahead of the African Union Summit of Heads of State and Government in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Well, our guest is Ibrahim Akan, an AU governance expert who shares his insight about the mediation efforts.
The AU involvement in the DRC crisis is normal. It's even in the AU Constitutive Act. The AU, in the situation of war crimes, genocide, of crime against humanity, the organization can even go into the country and deal with the situation without an acceptance by the government in place in the country. So peace and security in Africa is one of the main power that the AU has over African countries. But in the situation of the DRC, unfortunately, we have not seen any move this recent years about the crisis in the DRC and the fact that people fled. Most of the people who were accused or who were involved in the genocide fled to the DRC. That's where the crisis started. From 1993 to now, it's 30 years. 30 years the country is not in peace. 30 years during which millions of people lost their life. 30 years of which the crisis limited first to DRC, Burundi, and Rwanda now has expanded to the whole region. So this situation needs to stop. And all the effort that the AU has put in place at the moment to deal with the situation has fallen.
Why is this meeting in Luanda significant ahead of the AU summit?
Well, this meeting is significant simply because the AU has to show that something is done to really deal with the situation of the DRC. We can't continue to accept a situation whereby African issues are sorted out outside of the continent and are sorted out by people who have an economic interest on the continent. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the U.S., when the U.S. is involved in the crisis in the DRC, the U.S. is really interested by the life of people who are lost in the DRC or by the security of the region? No, the U.S. is only interested by the mineral resources of the country. Do you think that Qatar or the Arab Emirates Union are also interested by the peace and security in the DRC? They have their own interest, But for us Africans, peace and security is not a choice. It's what we need. Peace and security is a necessity for our continent. So that's why this meeting is important, because we will have to make a choice. Either we want to change our continent for the benefit of our population, or we continue this kind of initiative, action, and all these strategy, and we will continue to sit down and look the death and deal with all these bad situation of our continent.
What key outcomes should be expected from these talks on Eastern DRC?
The first thing to do is to accept the idea that all the effort done by external actors have failed. If we agree that all the effort done by external actors have failed, it's for us Africans now to really start dealing with our own agenda, to really start putting in place a system that will try not only to stop the war, to really find a solution, finding a solution to the crisis. Because we like it or not, at the beginning of the crisis in the DRC was the genocide. Now it's an economic problem. How do we really set up a system where, economically speaking, it will be at the advantage of the government of the Rwanda, at the advantage of the other government of the region, and at the advantage of the government of the DRC? Because if we don't do it, it's other actors that will come to Africa, take our resources and do what they want with our own resources. So I think this meeting needs to really come up, change the whole rationale about this crisis, and start really dealing with the serious issues in a more elaborated way than before.
Ibrahim Khan is an AU governance expert. Well, in sports, South Africa began their T20 World Cup campaign in style, beating Canada by 57 runs in Ahmedabad. The Proteas posted beating Canada tournament high with a 213 for 4, led by Aiden Makrams of 59, before Lungi Ndidi struck early to leave Canada struggling. Well, despite resistance from Navneet Dhaliwal, Canada finished on 156 for 8. The win leaves South Africa level with New Zealand at the top of Group D. They face Afghanistan on Wednesday, while Canada play the UAE on Friday. And Asante Kotoko, that is Ghanaian Giants, have parted ways with head coach Abdul Karim Zito following their exit from the 2025 MTN FA Cup against Aduana FC. The club confirmed Zito's immediate resignation, thanking him for his service. Kotoko now enters a transitional phase as management seeks a new head coach ahead of their next league clash with Accra Oats of Oak. Well, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maudu Ju for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X and Instagram, and Facebook at WDR English. I am Sankule Janko. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Niba County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone in Nigeria, and Love 104.5 FM Abuja.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy Radio is all about you, your views, and your opinions.